Jeffrey Epstein was one of the most powerful men you were never meant to know about. A man who moved silently through the upper echelons of society. He didn't run for office. He wasn't exactly a celebrity, but somehow he had access to some of the world's biggest names. He was even invited into elite spaces most people couldn't even imagine. And for years, no one ever asked why. He was a ghost in plain sight, hidden behind money and mystery, and an island that's become synonymous with some of the darkest rumors in modern history. Now, the world knows of him and his crimes, but I don't think most of you know the extent of it. Today, lady and ma'am, we are taking a deep dive into Jeffrey Epstein's life, his crimes, his island, the infamous guest list, and the weird new footage that has come out only days ago. Buckle up, because researching for this video completely blew my mind. Epstein's story didn't actually begin with scandal. It began quietly. Jeffrey was born in Brooklyn in 1953 and raised in a pretty normal household. Despite not finishing college, he managed to get a teaching job at the Dalton School in Manhattan. It's here Epstein started collecting the first of his contacts. He didn't stay in education long. He transitioned to Wall Street, where he landed at Bear Stearns and quickly impressed his bosses. He wasn't actually much of a financial wizard. He was more of a networker. Someone who made others feel like he had something they needed. By the 1990s, Epstein was a millionaire. He had homes in New York, Paris, Palm Beach, New Mexico, and of course, Little St. James in the US Virgin Islands. What was kind of weird though, was that no one could actually explain where his money came from. He claimed to manage billions of dollars for clients, yet no firm had records. It was as if his entire empire was built on relationships rather than business. But behind the wealth was something far more disturbing. By the early 2000s, rumors were starting to come out about underage girls visiting his Palm Beach mansion. Epstein's homes were reportedly filled with surveillance equipment. He had cameras in every single room, which probably should have been the first red flag, right? Like, he was obsessed with recording people. I don't know if he used that for like blackmail or insurance or his own pleasure. No one can say for sure. But in 2005, a 14-year-old girl told police she had been recruited by a classmate to give Epstein a massage. And then obviously what followed wasn't just a massage. When authorities investigated, they discovered loads of similar stories. A pyramid scheme of exploitation, girls recruiting other girls, all under the guise of money. The evidence was pretty fucked up, but Epstein managed to strike a secret plea deal in 2008. He actually negotiated behind closed doors. The deal was pretty messed up. Epstein pled guilty to 2 state charges and was sentenced to 13 months in a county jail with work release privileges. So basically, he was allowed to leave the facility for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He legit just had to sleep there. That's all. And what makes it worse is his victims weren't actually informed of this deal until after it was signed, which actually is a violation of federal law. Many assumed that that would be the end of it, but yeah, it obviously wasn't. Epstein didn't operate alone. He was surrounded by people, recruiters, enablers, associates, and the most infamous of them was Ghislaine Maxwell, a British socialite and daughter of Robert Maxwell. Ghislaine was Epstein's right hand. She attended events with him, introduced him to powerful friends, and according to numerous people, she helped lure young girls into his circle. And their strategy was fucked up. They targeted vulnerable girls, often with unstable home lives. They promised money and modeling opportunities, access to elite circles. Then they exploited them repeatedly. Some girls were passed between Epstein and his friends, and that is part of the infamous Epstein list, which I will show later in this video, but bear with me. But despite mounting allegations, Epstein remained largely untouched. His homes were never raided, his connections stayed intact. His name rarely ever made the headlines, which just goes to show how easily the elite get away with everything. But That all changed in 2019. In July of that year, federal agents arrested Epstein at a New Jersey airport. They raided his $77 million Manhattan mansion and discovered thousands of sexually explicit photos and videos of minors. Epstein was finally being charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy. He was denied bail. Everything was unfolding fast. Victims began to come forward, hundreds of them. Some of them had been silent for years. Then, just 1 month later, the unthinkable happened. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official cause of death was by hanging. But this didn't really add up. I mean, he was on watch, which means he was under extremely close surveillance. But then, out of nowhere, he wasn't. Then his cellmate was removed the night before. The cameras in the hallway conveniently malfunctioned. The guards on duty claimed that all of them had fallen asleep, and the injuries on Epstein's neck were more consistent with strangulation. In other words, Epstein didn't kill himself. And honestly, if you still believe he did, then you probably visited his island too. Then, like every major event to happen in the world ever, Epstein didn't kill himself started to trend. It became a meme. But it wasn't just a meme. It was sort of a cry for the truth. People wanted answers because Epstein wasn't just some creep off the street. He had evidence and names and way too much knowledge that could take down some very elite figures. And he died before any of that could come to light. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested in 2020. Her trial was closed to the public, and she ended up being convicted on 5 counts related to trafficking minors. But again, the names of Epstein's clients were sealed. So this is where people really started to question, what the fuck is going on? Why did no one else face charges? Why were the people receiving trafficked girls never identified? What happened to the thousands of photos, recordings, and documents seized from Epstein's homes? There are rumors that some of the names included prime ministers and foreign presidents. There were logs of Epstein's flights with names like Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, a lot more. I'm gonna put the speculated list at the end of the video, so keep watching. It's pretty full on. Now look, not every name on the list means that they went and diddled kids. I'm sure a lot of these meetings were actually business related, so take the list with a grain of salt. But a few days ago, a strange video began circulating online, uploaded by the FBI. It showed never before seen footage from the prison that Epstein was in. But something was off. People dug into the metadata, and it turns out that the file wasn't raw. It had been edited on Adobe Premiere Pro. Which actually brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Adobe. Do you need to remove footage of someone entering a prison cell? Try Adobe's new generative fill. No, I'm kidding. That would be a pretty cool segue into a sponsorship though, you gotta admit. Maybe you should subscribe. On the video, the export time didn't match the supposed capture date. Chunks of the frames were missing, almost as if they were trying to remove something. Maybe like, I don't know, someone entering his cell. Wouldn't that be crazy? Once again, the public was being teased with the truth, only to be handed an unedited version of reality. And once again, we had no more answers. I don't understand how they didn't assume people would check the metadata of this video. Do they think we're that stupid? Look, it is no secret that a lot of elites probably went to Epstein's island and did, you know, the stuff that you do there. Here's the speculated list. It's not 100% accurate because they still won't actually release the list, which sort of says enough.
Like, share, comment, subscribe.